Okay, so I think we're all here now, right?
Yep.
And so we'll go ahead and start the meeting.
Okay.
Carrie, I assume you've done the roll call from
All set.
who's online. Any citizens petitions?
Yeah, I have two attendees. Let's see if I can allow them to speak. Okay. If you could state your name and address and then the reason you're here tonight. Thank you. It's,
Yes,
Greg.
hi, everyone. This is Greg Gabonell. I'm the Environment Safety Manager from Medtronic, 950 Flanders Road in Mystic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Joanne Striffler.
I'm Joanne Striffler from Medtronic. I'm the manufacturing supervisor.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have Medtronic under new business, so I assume we'll address that at that point in the agenda.
Unless you guys agree, you want to move them up and do that now.
Okay, how about if we do the approval of the minutes and then go to the Medtronics?
Sure.
Thank you.
Communications, sure.
Okay, does anybody have any changes to the minutes from last meeting, or does somebody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thanks. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so the minutes are approved. Okay, so we'll go to the Medtronics item for new business, and then we'll return to the communications item.
Okay, so this is Harry. I can talk about the Medtronics issue. So Medtronics is registering their discharge permit, and where they had previously had a significant industrial user permit, they're allowed under the new DEP miscellaneous industrial user discharge permit to register. That new permit is it's a lot less of it's a lighter duty permit. There's a lot less paperwork and fees involved, and they basically comply with that permit, so they can register under that instead this cycle. There's only a couple of instances where they don't comply with the permit, and they're seeking a variance for two constituents that would be slightly over the limit of that permit. So that miscellaneous industrial user general permit that DEP issued is, I mean, that's a one-size-fit-all permit that the DEP issued for to cover 84 water pollution control facilities. So in that permit, they've allowed the WPCA Commission to grant variances based on local treatment plant allowances. So that permit gives you guys the authority to grant variances on certain items, and the items that a variance is being sought for are those items. So Medtronics, they've been in business here probably since the 80s. I don't know exactly when, but they've always brought their wastewater to the treatment plant. Their process is consistent. What this variance is for is they need a variance of total Keldol nitrogen in their effluent. The permit allows 40 milligrams per liter or 8 pounds per day. And they would like to increase to 80 milligrams per liter and 16 pounds per day. The second item they need a variance on is COD, chemical oxygen demand. The permit has a limit of 1,200 milligrams per liter, and they would like to increase that to 3,000 milligrams per liter. So the one thing I want to point out is, I mean, if those numbers sounded high to you, they really discharge a very small amount of wastewater, 24,000 gallons a day or less. So the actual loading on the treatment plant is not significant. It's not expected to cause any violations. So the other thing I want to point out is this is the same process that they've used for years. It's the same wastewater that they've brought to the plant for years. The variance is not needed because of a change in their process. It's needed because of a change in the DEP permit process. So that's the background and what the variance is for. So if you have any questions, I can answer on that.
I don't know.
I take it you have no objection to doing that.
I have no objection to doing it. No, it's a small amount of the nitrogen and the COD that they're bringing in is a small amount because they only bring in a small amount of wastewater.
Mhm.
Is there a legal standard that they have to meet in order to get a variance? I mean, like a variance you get from the zoning board, you need to show a hardship or something. Is there any standard that's involved here?
No, the only standard is that the DEP recognized that their one size fit all permit doesn't fit all of the treatment plants. They're all different. They all have different capabilities. So as long as the plant has the capabilities of doing it and of handling whatever the variance is, then you're allowed to grant a variance.
Okay.
Is this the related to the new permitting that we approved last meeting?
Yes,
Or this,
yes, last
yes.
meeting you set the fees for the permit, yes,
okay, so this is coming under that new process.
correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, does anybody have any further questions? Does somebody want to make a motion on this
don't-
matter?
I move we approve their permit.
Do I have a second?
Do we need to discuss?
Oh, I don't know. Is that how
I
it
don't know.
works?
I don't know.
But I think you could second the motion and then have a discussion on it and then
then
the vote
vote.
after.
Yeah, second will allow you to discuss it.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Is there discussion?
I guess my question is, it's not like there's not a permit already out there that they qualify for, right? They just want this permit because it'll cost them less money. Is that?
It costs them less money, yes, and it's I mean, it's a more streamlined permit. You know, the significant industrial user permit that they previously were registered under, it has a lot of extra requirements that aren't necessary for their type of business and for their type of discharge. It just
Okay,
causes
well-
a lot of extra paperwork and yes, a lot of extra cost with it.
Okay, and they were registered with the state at that point, not with Groton, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, why couldn't they have gotten this particular type of variance before when they were with the state?
Well, this permit wasn't there then, and the other state permit had higher limits to it.
And higher limits to it. So the state is basically, as I understand it, they had this requirement which already was satisfied, and they're just shoving the paperwork onto us instead of doing it themselves. Is that a fair statement?
It is. They've shed a lot of their less intense permits. They lumped a lot of less intense uses into one permit and issued that for the local departments to take care of rather than the state to take care of. The state still issues the permit. We just do the monitoring.
Mhm.
Well, okay, so this, everything was switched over to Groton. And so Groton are the nature of the permits the same? In other words, I presume there's a hierarchy of permits. You know, there's this significant permit use and then there's this lesser one.
Yes.
Has there been a change? Okay, so what you're saying is when they were permitted by the state, I take it, did not have the opportunity to ask for a variance to go down to a lower level?
There was no option available at that time. It's the creation of this new permit that created that option. The prior permit is in the same ballpark where, say, Pfizer would be registered under. You know, large industries.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to observe that the suspended solids is something that the existing plant does very well with. They just have a big settling tank and the crud settles to the bottom. And the chemical oxygen demand is, again, that's something that the bacteria are supposed to take care of, and they do take care of it very well. What we discharge to the environment as well under the requirements. So it seems to me that both of these are pretty benign things.
Did somebody from Medtronic want to speak?
Can you folks hear me? This is
Yeah.
Greg.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks.
I just want to make sure that everyone understands that our existing state permit is expiring
Oh,
on June 6th. And that was the initial prompt to investigate what our options, are. The state is encouraging smaller dischargers such as Medtronic to pursue this general miscellaneous industrial user general permit as an alternative. It is simpler. It's an entirely simpler process. And with the simplicity, yes, it is significantly less cost. So I'm assuming, and Harry, you can correct me, that I assume we're not the only one in the town that is or will be pursuing this general permit registration.
No, you're not. There's-
Okay. The other point I want to make is that the process, the inputs into the wastewater have not changed. It's the same wastewater that the plant has been receiving from us for years or decades. So this is more of an administrative change.
Can I ask, what does Medtronic actually do? I suppose I should know, but I don't.
We make surgical sponge products
Uh-huh.
focused mostly on ear, nose, and throat applications. We also have a small but growing diabetes component manufacturing section.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Are you involved in any way in the COVID business?
Medtronic itself is, but not, I'm sorry to say, not the plant in Mystic. Sorry.
Quite all right, as long as somebody does it.
Okay, so it sounds like there's been administrative changes which we partly implemented last meeting and that the state is looking for things to go through the sort of the judgment call is what's the most appropriate permit. And to me, it sounds like this is a reasonable permitting process to be going under. Harry, I guess I don't see any advantage or to the other permit or downside to this permit. It's not somehow going to, change what their responsibilities are to us.
I agree.
Is that correct?
That's correct. There's no change. There's no change in what they deliver or how they deliver it. It's, it is, I guess, administrative is a good word, I guess, for it.
Okay, so I think we had a motion to approve and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I just have one sort of, I guess it's a request. I would like it, I mean, I have not seen any of the paperwork that's involved in transferring this over from the state or if we've got it, I haven't noticed it, but the policy that allows us to give variances, if these are going to come up more often, I would really like it if we had the town attorney run this by the town attorney so that they can tell us whether or not there are any legal requirements that have to be met to get one of these permits, or whether we have just total, I mean, it sounds like we have absolute discretion to do this, and that just doesn't, I mean, it just sets off bells in my head. Okay, I mean, I'm a lawyer, so it doesn't sound right. So I'd like to have a little guidance. I'm prepared to vote in favor of this one, but I really think that for the future we should have some guidance on what kind of showing an applicant should have to make in order to get a variance like this, if there is such a legal requirement. I don't know that there isn't, but typically there is. I mean, if you want to get a zoning variance, you need to show a hardship and you need to show certain things, and there has to be a findings made. And I'm just curious, I'd like to be sure that in the future we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, John, I can certainly run this by the town attorney. I knew, Harry and I kind of had this conversation today that we both felt like the word variance may not be appropriate in this case, because it is, what I've read, it allows the authorities to grant these, variances. I don't know what a better word would be, but, without necessarily having a hardship like you do in a land use.
Right. No, I understand that. I understand that is not a specific requirement. But I would just like to be sure that there isn't some kind of standard, because it seems like an odd thing. We could just, if we have total discretion, it means we could have two applicants with exactly the same set of circumstances, but we might not like Joe Blow over here. So we say no to him and we say yes to this person over here. And there's nothing that either one of them can do about it. So I would just like a little, the lawyer may come back and say, you can do whatever you want. I don't know, but I'd like to hear from
All
somebody.
right, I will, I'll send that out to the town attorney. This
Great. I mean, that's what they get paid for, right?
Yeah.
So that sounds reasonable to me. I think, that would be useful guidance to have. Do we want to go ahead and vote on this motion or amend it to be contingent on what the town attorney says? Or I'm just, our
Can we
next meeting would obviously be in May, and they said the permit was expiring in June. So I want to make sure there's enough time here to be processing their permit.
So I just want to interject and add the one last thing is that, I mean, the reason you're allowed to grant variances is because we're different than the other 83 plants that have to issue this to the same permit. We're able to handle this increase in this pollutant load. So that's why, the DEP wrote a permit to cover everyone, and you're allowed to apply local limits and grant a variance is the essence of the variance.
Okay,
Well,
can I suggest we go ahead and vote on the motion and then, we can find out what the town attorney says. It sounds like there's some fair flexibility. Harry, I totally understand what you're saying about, each treatment facility is different, uses somewhat different processes and has obviously different size tanks and so forth. And so they may have just written some general flexibility in there, like you say, to address that. So I think it's worth double checking that with the town attorney to make sure that there's nothing we should be doing differently in the future. But should we go ahead and vote on this one now?
I'm for that.
Yeah, time
Okay.
for that.
So we have a motion to approve in a second. So all in favor, say aye. Aye,
Aye.
it's approved. So I think that takes care of Medtronic. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let's return to the agenda. Item 4 was communication, and there was the 19 Pearl Street Mystic Sewer backup information we were provided. I guess a request in that for reimbursement. So I don't know whether
Harry, do you want to just give a brief summary of what happened? And
Sure. So we got a call. Pardon me, I'm checking times and verifying. So it was around 4:45 on the 22nd of March. That's a Sunday. That the sewer department got a call that there was sewage coming out of a manhole, that we had a stoppage. So we, staff was called in and responded with the jet truck to clear the stoppage. A short while later, well, let me see, sometime after almost 8 o'clock, the guard received a call from the police dispatch that there was a sewer backup on Pearl Street. So the guard let the guys at that site know that there was a backup. So they went towards that house. It was so far away from the backup that they actually thought it was a different issue, but apparently it wasn't. When earlier in the day, the owner of that 19 Pearl Street had called plumbers because he was getting some backup into his basement. So he had called some plumbers. He didn't realize there was a stoppage down the road. The plumbers came, did their work, and eventually determined it was a stoppage in the road. And so either the plumber or that homeowner called the police dispatch to let him know. And that's what that call around 8 o'clock was to the guard that went through the police department. So, but we had an earlier notice and we're at the site working at the time. I know that's a little confusing, that both things were going on at the same time. So, it's I can't recall how far it was up the road. Because part of the blockage was at Steamboat Wharf, which is on the, kind of on the other side of the commercial strip there from Pearl Street. So, and Pearl, so but both streets were affected.
What was the nature of the stoppage?
Well, there's a lot of restaurants there, and so there's always an issue with grease. And there's a couple of sewers piping there that's pretty flat and pretty flat slope, so it doesn't really drain that well. That's kind of what caused the stoppage. And then so it backed up Pearl Street, and apparently backed up high enough that, and far enough that this house was affected. That's, I mean, I think it was about 600 or 700 feet up the road. But there was, I mean, there was a blockage. We did go down and clean that. So the plumber that he didn't know that this was going on down the road when he called the plumber. He had no idea. He thought it was his own house, and that's why he called the plumber in. And the plumber came and snaked and cambered his line, determined it was in the street. So that's what had happened there.
And the plumber did go out in the street right in front of this guy's house and pulled the manhole cover, and I guess the sewage was right up to the top.
Right.
according to his report.
So the plumber helped you figure it out? Kind of.
Well, I mean, he let us know that it had backed up that far. I mean, our guys were working at the stoppage down the road.
Right, right.
So they cleared it, I take it.
Yes, they did.
And it wasn't anything permanent. It was just something that happened.
Right. Yeah, there was some, stuff builds up in the sewer, and it slowly accumulates and you get a blockage.
Has this particular site had problems before?
It has, yes.
But weren't the Pearl Street sewers replaced a year? Well,
Pump station, right?
yeah, well, no, the entire street was dug up at one point last year because,
Oh, that was
Used
for
to go-
burying water lines.
Yeah, that was the water line.
oh, the water line, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So this particular thing with the sewers hasn't happened before recently.
Well, no, I mean, it does happen. Our guys go out and actually check that area, and they, routinely. This one, I mean, this was over a weekend. This was Sunday late, so they likely checked it the previous week. I mean, the blockage just built up, and once it starts, it snowballs.
So do we have it? Are we being asked today to decide whether or not we're gonna reimburse this guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it strikes me if there's a lot of restaurants involved, and we're coming out of this COVID thing, and more people will be going to restaurants, and more people will be seated at restaurants in the future. Should we investigate further?
Well, we do. I mean, they have a fog program, a fat oil grease program, and they maintain their grease stuff. Some grease gets by in the sewers. There's a section of flat sewer, very, very, very low slope sewer, so that helps contribute to backups. Just a combination of those things, leads to that sort of a thing. We do check that area frequently because it is known. They call it Grease Alley, and they do check it often.
Maybe the restaurants need to improve their grease catching.
Well, they do, and actually, and I'd also talk to the health department about that because they also inspect, and they didn't have anything to find fault with any of them in particular.
So maybe it's just one of those things we have to keep an eye on, huh?
Right.
Would there be any call for a pump, another additional pump or anything?
Another pump?
You say it's very shallow. If you put
It is.
a pump that would pump it up, so then it would flow downhill, would that,
No, I mean, it's just the pipe is just very flat there, is what he means by shallow
Mhm.
slope.
grease alley?
Well, could I ask your opinion? In your opinion, are we liable, or let's say this was in a small claims court, would we be responsible for having caused the backup in that person's house?
I would have to say yes. I don't think there's any way to prove that it wasn't us.
Mhm.
Right.
What are we
I mean, I don't
liable
have a
for?
problem with, if it's our doing, then we should pay, but I just, not something that I can make a determination on.
Are we liable for the plumber's bill for the householder?
Well,
Well, that's what they're requesting, is that we reimburse, I think it's 2050, 2050.
Holy smokes.
yeah, I've never seen a bill that high.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, the charge for it, I'm not like at $500 an hour. That's
Right.
pretty good. And
It pays to be a plumber. on a
I guess I
Sunday
should have been a
afternoon.
plumber instead of a lawyer. Charge $500 an hour.
Yeah.
But
Mr.
there might have been
Teicholz,
3 or 4 people there. I don't know.
yeah, Mr. Teicholz said he had called this was his 5th plumber, or he had called 5 plumbers. This was the only one that responded. And
On a Sunday.
on a Sunday,
Right,
it was
a Sunday evening, yeah.
Sunday evening, and he, on the phone, he acknowledged, he says, yeah, it was a lot of money, and it was a Sunday evening, and I think I got a little extra, but at that point, he didn't think he had any other choice.
What plumbing company?
Yeah, as far as what plumbing company was it? It
Yeah.
was
We've got the bill here.
All Things Sewer and Drain Care. They're in New London.
Hmm. And the other 4 people just didn't even answer,
Yeah,
huh? Yeah, I should.
Well, they say on their letterhead, their emergency service 24 hours a day.
yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they know the business they're in, that they answer the phone Sunday nights when other people don't.
Right.
So,
Right. And
Yeah.
plumbers
No.
rule the world.
yeah, and I totally understand how, as a homeowner, if I had sewage backing up, I would want something done immediately and deal with the cost and the consequences later, because
Mhm.
letting it go could only be worse.
Right. He did clean it up himself. He didn't,
Yeah, they didn't ask us for money for any of their
right,
cleanup.
Not for
or-
a hotel or any of that stuff. 'cause
right.
we've
No,
seen
he
that
just
before,
cleaned
right?
it up himself. It was backing up through a sink in his basement. It filled up the basin, then overtopped onto the floor, ran to the sump pump, and he has an alarm on the sump pump when it's running, and that's how he knew something was going on. So,
Yeah, I think he earned it.
Yeah, I guess I'll make a motion to reimburse the guy.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And we have a second. Laura, you seconded? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I think we've had plenty of discussion, unless anybody has something further.
Let's
Uh,
vote.
We'll take a vote. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Okay, so it's passed to reimburse that bill.
Okay.
Thank
thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is reports. I assume we don't have consultant reports or changes to sewer use list or attorney's reports. Is that correct?
That's correct, Hugh.
Okay, so then we'll go on to Public Works Director's report.
Just a few items. The WPCF operations supervisor we had interviewed 2 people, neither one of them panned out, so we put it back out, re-advertised it, that closed on Friday. I understand we had at least 1 applicant, so we'll see what happens there. I haven't received those yet, but we'll, hopefully that'll work out. I have not had a chance yet to reach out to Beard Brewery, Mystic Cheese yet. You know, Harry and I are going to schedule time to meet with them, see where they're at on their, you know, process of getting their wastewater side streamed and you know, processed at their brewery there. A couple projects. We got the Gravel Street Pump Station. We took we had 4 bids received for that. This is to replace some pumps. Some other work there, and the low bid was within budget, and so the engineering consultant is reviewing those bids now. And then the Gosco Pump Station, they're still just doing submittals, and we expect any day now they'll actually be out there working. So that's all I had.
Okay, and any questions, comments on that, or we'll move on to the Water Pollution Control Facility report?
Okay, I'll let Harry take that one.
Okay, so March was typical, exception, we're still not doing that well with nitrogen, waiting for warm weather to get a little more activity out of the bugs. And so we were 360 pounds per day of nitrogen average over March. It is warming up and we are doing better with nitrogen so far in April. So I'm hoping that gets a lot better by the end of April. With the high flows, there were a couple of violations we had to report to DEP. I actually don't have a listing of them, but there were a couple of not significant. I mean, any of them, I guess, are significant, but not extreme, as far as like a TSS or maybe a fecal coliform over the limit. But they all get reported to DEP and the Bureau of Aquaculture and the Ledge Light Health District. And I
I
think
take
that's
it none
all.
of these would affect the daily or weekly or monthly average. It wouldn't put us over the average for the month.
No, we were okay. These were just isolated events. So I think
That's it?
that's it. I have some fore noticing of the nitrogen program from last year. You know, we did well with nitrogen removal last year. So it's the prior year we did okay, and we got I think about $400 back in credits that we sold. So I don't know if you call it, the program is if the DEP establishes a limit for you, and if you do better than the limit, you get to what they call credits. They convert the nitrogen discharge into credits, and if you're under your limit, you can take that underage and sell it to plants that were over their limit. So it kind of balances it out. There's plants that are buying credits, plants that sell credits. So last year, or in 2019, we were able to sell a few credits, and we got, I think, $424 sticks in my mind. So for 2020, we did really well, and I was pretty excited because I was using the 2019 dollar value of credits, and I was looking at getting about $10,000 back from DEP. So unfortunately, a lot of other plants did well with nitrogen also. So there's quite an imbalance that caused the cost to go down. So there were more sellers than buyers. Let me say more people selling than buying. So it drove the cost of the credit down, So whereas it was $6.67 per credit in 2019, for 2020, it dropped down to $1.36.
Oh.
So instead of 10,000, we're going to get back about 2,000. So,
Ooh.
Well, that's good news for the environment, I guess.
right, it is. Yes, it is. And that's, I guess that's the overarching benefit that we should be looking at. But yeah, I was kind of psyched about, oh, I'm going to get 10 grand back. So I don't know. Things happen, right?
There you go.
Well, I thought our idea of having buying and selling credits is probably a very good idea. It sort of smells like free enterprise, and I wish the state and the country had could bring themselves to that too. Which they can't.
Okay, so thank you for that report. There's a chairman's report, which I don't have a report. I actually have a question, so maybe I'll just ask it now. The permits that we approved, you know, the fee schedule for last meeting, and that we just did this Medtronic variance thing. Is there some mechanism by which we know, you know, which businesses need to have those permits? And that we somehow follow up on that?
Right. So so it's basically by the type of business, you know, that you can expect certain certain discharges from certain businesses. The easy one to pick on is car washes. You know that there's, you know, they're putting a lot of liquid into the sewer system that's going to have, you know, detergents and that sort of thing in it. So they're, you know, a car wash is going to be registered. If there's any photo finishing shops, there's a long list of types of businesses that would be regulated, you know, required to sign into the permit. Now, and there's different, I guess, volumes. You know, a small, and I'll use a photo shop, but a small photo shop is going to have a less of a permit requirement than a big photo shop. You know, so it's not only the type of business, it's the intensity of the business. For example, the airport, they have they fall under this permit. They, you know, they have the air, I can't recall, the AVCRAD, the airplane repair shops and that sort of thing that have, they, you know, they generate chemical discharges and that sort of thing. So they would be registered under this. Trying to think of some other businesses that would you know, small, like a small metal shop might be anybody who's doing any kind of a process that generates wastewater from that process. So restaurants are all covered with a FOG permit, but it's the same sort of thing. If you're producing something in your business, you're probably need to look at that permit.
Doesn't the
So,
brewery come under this now?
I'm
Aaron?
sorry?
Doesn't the brewery come under the Spirit Brewery now?
Oh, yes, food processing. Yes,
Yeah.
the brewery is considered a food processing. So the brewery, the cheese factory, if anyone else is doing any sort of food processing in town, that would be a business to sign on to that permit.
And theoretically, all those businesses had permits with the state before, and they were notified that they need to now apply to the town? Or-
Well, yes, all those businesses did have a permit for this with the state before. The state published notice. I'm not sure if they did any blanket mailings or not. I'm not sure about that. But the state gave us the list of all their registrants, you know, about a year ago, and I'd gotten in touch with all of them to let them know what was going on, and this was happening.
Okay, okay, so you've already reached out to all those people.
Right, all the people with existing permits I've reached out to.
Okay. So it just essentially now be if a new business got started, somehow they find out they need this permit.
Right. I think ideally it would be at the town's planning department or that sort of thing. They're the ones that know first what's coming in town. So hopefully they can be helpful to us in getting that information to the applicants.
Is that something we potentially need to make them aware of?
I'm not sure if they're aware of it. I really don't know.
But any new site plan that comes in through the planning commission gets routed through our office in Public Works.
Okay,
So we would flag it then and have Harry take a look at it.
okay,
And
Okay.
notify, through the site plan approval process.
okay. I mean, I know somehow it gets flagged because there's a Starbucks looking to go in somewhere and they got in touch with us about what their permit needs would be. So somebody up there does know. And there's apparently.
Okay,
We're keeping an eye out for you, Harry. We keep an eye out for you.
Great.
I just wanted to make sure because obviously when, you have a change like this, it's important to have enough communication that people, so I'm glad you reached out to all the existing permit holders. And it sounds like we have a process for when new businesses are trying to come in so that, it sounds like we're not in danger of having, things really fall through the cracks.
No, I'm trying to keep an eye on those things.
Okay, great, thanks. That was what I should have asked all that last time when we approved the fees, but I
No, no.
didn't think of it till after, so.
No, it's all right.
Okay, should we go on to the other new, item 6, new business was the FY22 budget. And I guess there's also this modification thing that got sent out. Is that part of for the capital? Is that?
Yeah, that's part of the budget discussion, yeah.
Yep.
So everybody, I hopefully got a chance to look at the budget. I know I kind of presented in a Excel spreadsheet form a few meetings ago, so it's pretty much the same. The overall decrease is a little over $1 million, primarily because of the CIPs that we cut $1 million out from last year since we're not doing a major pump station upgrade this year.
Might I say that my reading of the budget, it's not as nearly as clear and understandable as it used to be. It used to be each line item, there was an amount and what it's for. And this seems to be sort of a summary or something. I had a trouble understanding it. Anybody else?
I mean, this is
Dave,
right
are
out
you
of
talking,
town budget.
there's more than one page to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had about 5 pages, I guess.
Yeah,
Right. I don't know. It doesn't seem much different than what we've seen. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, well, if the lawyer guy thinks it's all right, I guess.
No,
I think it's all
I'm
right.
not saying, but it just, there's line items for, all kinds of different expenses, just like there was before.
I
Right?
don't think it's changed too much that I know. I mean, it's been like this for years.
Okay, why don't you go on?
But anyway, yeah, so, the personnel services are down a little bit, and that's because of the way finance calculates the other post-employee benefits. That number went down quite a bit from last year. And then on the expense side, like I said, it's really the CIP. The rest of the stuff is pretty close to what it was last year. So I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on any of the specific line items in there.
One thing that caught my mind is on page 2 of this thing I got under treatment facility, water pollution control facility description. It says no canker. What's that about?
So where are you, Dave?
Second page, of the revised capital improvement program.
Oh, you're looking at the capital improvement program. I'm not there yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm just looking at the operating budget right now.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't have any questions. I think this may be the first time I'm seeing this. I don't think I was, last year, I don't think I was on yet, but maybe I was. Anyway, anybody else have anything they want to raise about the operating budget? Doesn't sound like it, so do you want to move on to the CIP?
Sure. On the CIP, if you look at, I'll start with 10C, which is the treatment facility. We had put in $200,000 to perform a major repair of the Service A emergency generator. This is one of the generators that's at the plant itself. And this generator is out of service, but we were able to, and our guys were able to get a specialist in, I guess, if you will, to remove a part that we didn't think could be removed. And he had some special equipment, I guess, to do that. And so they're actually going to repair the generator, and so we can avoid much less cost than the $200,000 to avoid this large major repair that we put in for it. And then, the guys are telling me that this generator will be back online and working. So when I was talking about generators, they had mentioned that the generators at two of our pump stations, Lestertown Road and Burgess Park, are very antiquated, and they have a hard time getting parts for them. So they want to put in new generators over there. So what I've done, and this will be run by the town council as well, is I've taken the 200,000 from 10C, taken that away. So we only have now 75 in 10C, and put the 200 over in 10B, which is pump stations. So to replace the emergency generators at Lestertown Road and Burgess Park pump stations. So that's what the change is. Other than that, we still have in the pump station, which is 10B, we still have 200,000 for the final design and bid documents to upgrade Mumford Cove pump station. We have an engineer that's doing some preliminary work on that now. And that'll be, our next large pump station upgrade, similar to what we're doing at Goss Cove. And then over at 10C, we kept 75,000 in to design equipment replacements and upgrades to the chlorine contact system, because Harry's having some issues with that at the plant. So I just wanted to, update everybody on this. I still have to go to the council. We started the CIP last week. We didn't get through it all. I got to finish up with them on Saturday. So these items will be, discussed with them. But I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of it.
Great, thanks. Any comments on the capital improvement budget? No? Okay, so I think we're finished with all our items. We had a lot of novel items this week.
It was a good meeting.
Well, I come back to my question now. This item requested for FY22 funds, $200,000 to replace major repair of the Service A emergency generator. And just above that, it says no canker. What is canker? I thought that was something that affected trees.
Oh, no, that's my poor writing. It just says no longer required.
No canker means no longer required?
Yeah, no, it doesn't say canker. It's the word longer.
Oh, well.
Just my scribble.
The computer strikes again. Okay.
Okay.
Move
Anything
to
else?
adjourn?
Yes, thank you. And Laura, you're second, and so I think we're all in favor of adjourning, and we shall adjourn. So we'll see everybody next month. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You,
Thank you.
yep.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.